You're listening to LoopIt Radio. Today's episode features Sandra and Alex. Let's loop it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We are exploring one of the most stressful yet common professional challenges we face. Having to communicate effectively when you have absolutely no time to prepare. You're sitting there, the camera's on, maybe the boss turns to you, or the microphone is suddenly in your face and the clock is 0. That sudden cognitive jam, the feeling that your brain has just turned to static.
Yeah, that moment of terror is pretty much universal, isn't it? And that's precisely what we're here to deconstruct and hopefully help you conquer today.
Right.
We are taking a deep dive into spontaneous speaking, pulling from this acclaimed workshop developed at the Stanford Graduate School of Business.
CSB, yeah.
This material is really designed to give you a kind of structural safety net for every single one of those off-the-cuff moments, turning those moments of panic into, well, opportunities for leadership.
I was fascinated reading through this, the techniques they developed, and we're going to jump straight into one of their core introductory activities because it illustrates the challenge so beautifully. We need you, our listener, to participate mentally right now. I'm going to read a sentence, and as I read it, I want you to focus intently and just count the number of times you see or hear the letter F. Just the Fs. Ready?
Got it.
Here's the sentence. The final result of the few years of scientific findings is often the reflection of hard work. Okay, take a moment. Lock in your number. Did you count 3 Fs? Perhaps 4. I know the first time I heard this sentence, I was pretty certain I got 5.
Right, and if you landed on 3, 4, or even 5, you're in excellent company. When they run this test in the workshop setting, even with highly focused, highly educated executives, the overwhelming majority fail to find the true answer.
Which is?
Which is 6 Fs.
6. And for me, the revelation wasn't just the total number, but what we miss. That tiny 2-letter word that ends in F that most of us completely skip over, the word of.
Exactly. And there are 2 of them in that sentence, of. Those account for 2 of the Fs people typically miss. What's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism at play, right? The word of is so common, it's so contextually integrated into the flow of language, that when our brain is under pressure, like a specific task counting Fs or, finding the perfect answer, it treats the common simple details as basically invisible.
Okay.
We search for the long, loud, obvious F words like final and findings and reflection.
Makes sense.
So this exercise is the perfect analogy for spontaneous speaking. When we are thrust into the spotlight, focused intensely on performance and desperately searching for some brilliant, complex answer, we completely miss the simple, critical details, the proven techniques, and the fundamental mindset shifts that would actually make us effective and articulate.
It's such a powerful lesson in cognitive overload, isn't it? When the pressure is on, simplicity really wins.
Yes.
So our mission today is to provide that simplicity. We are giving you a set of practical, academically supported techniques pulled directly from this workshop material, designed to manage the panic, reduce the cognitive load, and structure your thoughts when you have 0 seconds to spare. It's a deep dive into being instantly articulate.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's start by clearly defining our territory.
Right, yeah.
What exactly is spontaneous speaking, or SS as they call it?
Right.
It is any situation where you are asked to speak off the cuff, in the moment. And it's really critical to differentiate this from planned speaking. We're talking keynotes, formal conference presentations, or that meticulously rehearsed 20-minute product pitch. This isn't that.
And what really struck me in the source material is that SS is actually far more prevalent in our lives than planned speaking. It feels like the opposite, but it's not.
It really is.
Yeah.
We might dedicate, say, 3 months to preparing one massive keynote, but in that exact same 3 months, we will face literally hundreds of these spontaneous opportunities or demands.
Oh, hundreds, yeah.
Precisely. Those opportunities are the daily currency of professional communication. They include simple acts, like giving a genuine introduction for a colleague at a dinner party.
Sure.
Providing in-the-moment constructive feedback to a peer, offering a surprise toast at a retirement ceremony, or, the classic stressor, fielding rapid-fire questions during a Q&A session after a planned talk.
Right.
These SS moments are where our true skill set or lack thereof is really revealed.
The origin story for this GSBO workshop is in itself pretty telling about how crucial these skills are, even for these super smart, academically advanced students. Why did they even create a mandatory program for spontaneous communication?
Yeah, the need was identified through Cole's hard data. A student survey pointed to this major recurring point of failure and anxiety, responding to cold calls.
Ah, the cold call.
This scenario is classic business school, right?
Mm-hmm.
A professor just calls on a student mid-lecture, demanding an immediate high-quality analysis of a case study they may or may not have fully absorbed.
The dreaded "what do you think, Smith" moment. You just freeze.
Exactly. And the result was predictable. Panic, silence, or maybe just a flurry of disorganized thought, leaving the student feeling exposed and, frankly, incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
This anxiety over having to instantly produce a high-quality, structured response was such a roadblock to learning and participation that the school basically implemented a foundational workshop designed specifically to give students a mental toolkit for those exact moments.
So it's like teaching them to manage the panic so they can actually access the 6 Fs, right? Or find that simple answer that's hiding in plain sight.
Perfectly put. Manage the panic to find the F.
Okay, so before we even touch on structure or content, we have to tackle the anxiety. The fear of public speaking, glossophobia. It's often cited as the #1 fear.
It really is.
The sources confirm this. 85% of people report being nervous when speaking publicly, and the instructors rightly joke that the remaining 15% are likely, well, fibbing.
Or maybe clinical psychopaths, yeah. It's an ingrained, pervasive fear. And to underscore how deep this runs, the material cites research, including the Chapman University study, which consistently places public speaking among the top 5 fears for Americans.
Wow. Top 5.
Yeah, we're talking about fears that rank alongside massive external threats like terrorist attacks or identity theft. When that spotlight hits you, your brain genuinely perceives it as a threat.
So if it's that primal, that deep-seated, we can't just eliminate it, what's the functional goal then? What are we trying to do here?
The functional goal is management, not eradication. We absolutely must manage anxiety. We cannot crush it.
Yeah.
And crucially, we shouldn't want to crush it.
Oh, interesting. Why not?
Because anxiety serves a vital purpose. It provides us with focused energy, that adrenaline rush, and it signals to our system that what we are about to do is important. It's consequential.
Okay.
The objective is simply to control the surge so that it doesn't short-circuit your ability to think or speak clearly.
And this leads to a critical reframing that I found really powerful. Your core job as a communicator isn't just to survive the moment, but actually to make your audience comfortable so they are receptive to your message.
That's the key insight. If you are visibly nervous pacing, shaky voice, rapid breathing, the audience feels awkward.
Mm-hmm. You feel it too when you watch someone nervous.
Totally. They start looking away, fiddling with their phones, or maybe offering those false sympathy nods, which of course just sends the speaker into a deeper spiral of self-doubt.
Right.
The discomfort becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we need techniques to interrupt that spiral immediately.
All right, let's look at the first technique. This deals directly with the physical stuff, the somatic symptoms, the sudden racing heart, the gurgly stomach. This is the moment the spiral usually begins, right? I'm sweating, they know I'm nervous, I'm going to fail.
Right. And we use mindful attention to short-circuit that internal narrative. The technique is deceptively simple.
Yeah.
You just acknowledge the feeling. You sort of greet the anxiety.
Greet it like, hello, anxiety.
Pretty much. Take a deliberate grounding breath, maybe a 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, and say internally, hello, anxiety, I see you. This is me feeling anxious because I'm about to do something of consequence.
So you're not fighting the feeling, which usually just makes it stronger. You're just accepting it as data almost.
Exactly. You neutralize its power by labeling it, by greeting it and acknowledging that this is normal. Remember, 85% of people feel this way. You stop the anxiety from triggering that secondary wave of panic, which is the self-judgment.
Good.
You turn it from an enemy you have to conquer into a predictable companion you simply acknowledge before getting on with the job.
I like that. Okay, the second technique is about reframing the entire dynamic of the interaction.
Yeah.
We tend to view spontaneous speaking as this high-stakes performance.
And performance implies there's a single correct metric, right? Like hitting a perfect musical C note. If you miss it, you've failed the performance. But presenting and conversing are just not like that.
Right, there isn't one right way.
No. There are effective ways and less effective ways, sure, but it's not pass-fail. We have to reframe presenting as a conversation.
Okay, but you can't just announce it's a conversation. You have to enforce it with action. So action 1. Use questions.
Questions, yes. By their fundamental nature, they're dialogic. They instantly shift the dynamic from a one-way lecture to a two-way engagement. Think about our F-counting trick earlier. That was a question that immediately required your brain to shift into active engagement.
True.
The GSB instructor actually advises that even when you are preparing a planned talk, you should mentally frame your bullet points as the answers to the questions you anticipate your audience has.
Yeah, that's smart.
It keeps you in that conversational, responsive mindset.
Okay. And action 2, use conversational language. We learn that nervous speakers often unconsciously distance themselves both physically and linguistically. They kind of hide behind jargon or formal phrasing.
They do. They resort to passive voice or abstract, distancing language like "one must consider the ramifications," or "it is believed that this metric requires careful review."
Yeah, very formal.
It creates this formal barrier. To promote conversation, you must use inclusive, human conversational pronouns. Replace that distancing language with things like, "this is important to you because," or "when we consider this issue, we need to focus on."
Right. Using we and you.
It's a small, intentional shift, but it makes the audience feel included, and it reduces your own perceived threat level because you're just having a discussion, not delivering some kind of verdict from on high.
But wait a sec, in a really high-stakes professional setting like addressing the board or something, is there a danger in sounding too conversational? Wouldn't that undermine your credibility?
That's a really sharp distinction to draw, and it's important. Conversational does not mean casual or unprofessional. It means inclusive and direct. The goal isn't to start using slang or getting sloppy. The goal is to eliminate that linguistic distancing that makes the speaker sound defensive or removed from the subject matter.
Got it.
You maintain professionalism, absolutely, but you discard the formality that acts like a shield. The language becomes clearer and more authentic, which actually boosts credibility. It doesn't hurt it.
That makes perfect sense. So conversational means clear and direct, not sloppy. Okay. The third technique connects back to some really deep psychological research involving Phil Zimbardo and the concept of time perspective. It's about becoming aggressively present-oriented.
Yes. The vast majority of spontaneous speaking anxiety is rooted in worrying about future consequences. We aren't usually worried about the words we are saying right now. We are worried about the future state those words might lead to. Will I get the funding? Will the client sign? Will my boss judge me?
Right. All future hypotheticals.
Exactly. If we can force our consciousness into the present moment, those future concerns lose their leverage over us.
And the sources gave some incredibly specific, almost extreme examples of how professional speakers force themselves into the present.
They really did.
Yeah.
The example of the, was it $10,000 an hour professional speaker doing 100 push-ups behind the stage?
Yeah.
That's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
But the principle's clear.
Yeah.
Extreme physical exertion forces you to focus on your body right now. Less dramatic, but equally effective methods include forcing intense cognitive focus. For instance, counting backward from 100.
Okay.
Not by 5 or 10, that's too easy, but by a tough, mentally demanding number like 17.
Why 17? That seems oddly specific.
Because it requires too much immediate conscious calculation to allow residual worry about the audience or the content to creep in. It just fully saturates your short-term working memory. It's like a quick internal reset button.
Okay, I like that. But the instructor's favorite tool, and the one they say we should all practice, is the tongue twister. They use the classic example. I slit a sheet. A sheet I slit. And on that slitted sheet, I sit.
Right. And the reason tongue twisters work so well is their dual benefit. First, they demand absolute hyper-concentration. If you mess up, you sound silly, right? So you have to be totally present to articulate the phrase correctly.
True.
Second, they have the added physical benefit of warming up your voice, opening your throat, projecting sound. Nervous speakers tend to retreat physically and acoustically, speaking softly and internally.
You kind of shrink in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tongue twister forces sound out, countering that immediate nervous tendency to retreat.
So if we connect this back, mastering these 3 steps, greeting the anxiety, reframing his conversation, and becoming present-oriented, that's the essential prerequisite. Once the panic is managed, then we can actually utilize the 4 steps designed to structure your thoughts in real time.
Exactly. Foundation first, then the structure.
Okay, now we move into the methodology itself. These 4 core steps, each deliberately paired with an improvisation maxim for easy recall, are designed to give you instant scaffolding or framework when you're forced to speak without preparation. Got it. And step 1 is often the most painful, I think, for the type of high-achieving learner we often talk to. Get out of your own way.
The problem here is the self-sabotage caused by the quest for perfection. Our internal critic demands the single, brilliant, perfect answer.
Always.
We overanalyze the situation and we try to stockpile suggestions in our heads. This is the brain trying to master an unwinnable situation, but the result is cognitive paralysis. We just freeze up.
This reminds me of that shout the wrong name activity again, where you point at a chair and have to shout zebra or something.
Exactly.
The mind immediately tries to build a mental list of acceptable replacement words, fruits, animals, planets, to speed up the process.
Right. Your brain is trying to find a pattern to make the unwinnable game winnable, and that stockpiling actually slows you down, they say, by about 500 milliseconds.
Wow.
We need to wipe those mental stockpiles away. We want to move from reacting, which etymologically means to act again, implying a delay for internal processing, to responding.
Okay.
Responding is genuine, immediate, authentic action in the moment. You simply say the next thing that pops out, not the best thing you can carefully curate.
I remember freezing in front of a potential client once, totally froze, because I had like 3 different paths I could take with my answer. And I spent maybe 15 seconds trying to select the most brilliant one.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up just stammering the first half of a sentence. It was awful.
That's the classic outcome of seeking perfection. The pursuit of greatness leads to paralysis, which is why the maxim for this step is so profoundly freeing and honestly counterintuitive. Dare to be dull.
Dare to be dull. I love that.
Setting the bar at dull or just good enough instantly reduces the pressure. It eliminates that internal editor demanding a flawless rhetorical performance.
Yeah.
And paradoxically, once you give yourself permission to simply respond honestly, to be dull, you free up your cognitive resources to actually deliver content that is clear, authentic, and often surprisingly great.
Because you're not fighting yourself anymore. Okay, moving on to step 2. Once we dare to be dull, we must reframe the situation as an opportunity.
Right. The source material highlights that executives, especially in spontaneous Q&A, almost universally default to a threat mindset. They see the situation as adversarial. Me versus them.
Yeah, I can see that.
And this leads to defensiveness, guarded language, minimal responses that rarely satisfy the questioner.
But the mindset shift is crucial here. We need to view every spontaneous interaction, a cold call, a tough question, a surprise introduction, as a chance to explain, clarify, expand, or ideally, co-create something with your audience. It's a chance to build rapport, not just defend territory.
They demonstrate this beautifully with the imaginary gift game. Have you heard of this one?
Tell me about it.
Okay, so a partner hands you an imaginary wrapped box. You open it, and instantly, spontaneously, you name whatever random, unexpected thing you find inside. It could be a live unicorn, an avocado, a car transmission.
No, random.
Totally random. The giver must then instantly provide a reason why they bought you that specific random item.
Oh, wow. That sounds absolutely ridiculous and kind of fantastic.
It is. The brilliance of the game is that it forces spontaneity.
Right.
And completely eliminates the ability to be guarded or defensive.
Yeah.
You have to accept the premise, the unicorn exists in this moment, and instantly build on it.
Right.
This forced acceptance and building leads to shared fun and co-creation, which is really the heart of effective spontaneous communication.
So the maxim for step 2 is the famous one from improv,
Yep.
Yes and.
Yes, and. This approach forces you to build upon whatever the previous input was, opening up tremendous possibilities for dialogue and constructive movement forward. It's the complete opposite of the limiting adversarial response of no but.
Okay, but let me challenge that for a second. In a real corporate negotiation or maybe a tough feedback session, if my manager suggests an impossible timeline or ridiculous budget, shouldn't I be saying no, but we can do X? Isn't yes and sometimes just too passive, maybe even dangerous in a high-stakes, contentious environment?
That is a critical point of nuance, and you're right to raise it. Yes and does not mean yes, I agree with your terrible idea.
Okay, good.
It means yes, I accept the premise or the spirit of your statement, and I will add a constructive element to move us forward together.
Okay, explain that with the timeline example.
Sure. If the boss suggests an impossible timeline, you wouldn't say, yes, we can hit that date and we'll just work weekends forever. No. You would say something like, yes, achieving that aggressive goal is absolutely critical for the company, and to make sure we actually do it right and hit that mark sustainably, we're going to need to resource X, Y, and Z.
Oh,
Think Z.
Yeah.
You accept the goal's importance, the premise, yes, and immediately build on it with a necessary condition or path forward. And you never shut down the conversation with a flat no.
That reframing helps tremendously. It turns what feels like resistance into just outlining the necessary complexity.
Absolutely. Which leads us perfectly into step 3. Slow down and listen. Your obligation as a speaker is fundamentally to be in service of the audience, or the questioner. You simply cannot fulfill that obligation if you don't truly listen and understand their nuanced need or question.
Right.
The common flaw is that we listen just enough for the question to trigger our internal response mechanism, and then we mentally check out. We jump ahead to curate our brilliant answer.
Well, they're still talking sometimes.
Exactly. And in doing so, we miss crucial context, or the emotion behind the question.
The activity they used to demonstrate this forced a level of hyperfocus that is, well, rarely achieved in normal conversation, the spelling conversation.
Oh, this is a beautiful, awkward activity. Partners converse about something totally mundane, their weekend plans, a fun project they want to do, but they must spell every single word they say.
Every word.
Every word, like IAMGOINGTOTHEZOTODAY.
Oh, that sounds exhausting and incredibly slow.
It is exhausting and slow, but powerfully effective. When you have to spell out what you're saying, your cognitive resources are totally dedicated to the output. You cannot simultaneously be thinking ahead to formulate your response because you are concentrating fully on listening to the spelling of the incoming message.
Wow. Okay.
It forces you to be entirely present in the moment. The result is immediate clarity, much better pacing, and most importantly, when you finally speak, your response is precisely targeted to the message you just painstakingly received.
It essentially forces an intentional, productive pause. You have to wait.
It does. It ensures you honor the question, truly honor it. This is why the maxim here is such a wonderful, concise paradox. Don't just do something, stand there.
Stand there.
Listen, absorb, process, and then respond. The standing there, the pause, is an act of confidence, not confusion.
Which finally brings us to step 4. Tell a story. Use structure. This sounds like the ultimate tool for reducing that cognitive load we talked about.
Structure is invaluable. The sources cite research showing that structured information is processed about 40% more effectively and efficiently than just unstructured data or rambling.
40%? That's huge.
It is. Structure is the psychological equivalent of chunking a phone number.
Right.
Into 3-digit, and 4-digit segments. It aids memory and retention, both for the audience and for the speaker trying to remember their own points.
And in a spontaneous situation, the speaker is grappling with that dual challenge, figuring out what to say and how to organize it, basically at the same time. Structure solves the how.
Precisely. If you have just 2 simple structures memorized, ready to deploy the second you hear the question or get put on the spot, you instantly reduce your cognitive burden by half. You don't have to invent a framework on the fly. You just plug the content into the existing container.
Okay, let's review the 2 key structures they recommend keeping in your back pocket. First, the incredibly persuasive one, the problem, solution, benefit, PSB structure.
Yeah, this works for almost any pitch or analysis or recommendation. You start by clearly articulating the issue or the challenge. That's the problem. Then you offer the concrete steps you propose to resolve it, the solution. Finally, you articulate the positive outcome and why the audience should care, the benefit.
Problem, solution, benefit. Okay.
And you can also reframe the problem as an opportunity if you're discussing something like market capture or a growth strategy. Same structure, slightly different frame.
Got it. The second one, and maybe the most versatile for spontaneous introductions, quick pitches, or handling complex Q&A, is the what. So what, now what, WSN structure.
This is just a fantastic framing device, super useful. Start with the what. What is the person, the product, the idea, or the topic being addressed? Define it clearly.
Okay.
Then move quickly to the so what. Why is this relevant to this audience right now? Why should they care about the what? This is the critical persuasive bridge.
The relevance piece.
Exactly. And finally, the now what. What is the specific call to action required? What should happen next? Buy the product, approve the budget, listen carefully to the speaker, change the policy, whatever it is.
What? So what, now what? It seems perfect for intros or quick answers.
Absolutely. And the instructor practiced this constantly, didn't they? You mentioned they would use WSN when answering simple questions from their kids, just to keep the structure sharp in their mind.
Yeah, just drilling it in everyday life.
They did, confirming that structure only becomes second nature through deliberate practice. They used that selling the slinky activity to demonstrate this too. Trying to sell a slinky spontaneously is actually kind of hard.
Yeah, where do you even start?
Right. But trying to sell a slinky using the PSB or WSN model is suddenly much easier because the structure provides instant focus and a clear narrative arc.
This gives us our final maxim then. Structure sets you free.
It really does. The constraint of the framework actually grants the speaker the freedom to be creative and authentic with the content because the underlying scaffolding is already guaranteed. You're not worried about falling apart. Okay, so now we take those 7 techniques and maxims, the anxiety management and the 4 steps, and apply them to the moments that tend to cause the most stress, those high-stakes, spontaneous interactions that can really define a career moment.
Right, let's start with handling overtly hostile or challenging situations where the question is maybe laced with accusation or defensiveness, like a tense stakeholder meeting or maybe even an expert witness cross-examination kind of vibe.
Yeah, tough stuff. Step 1 here is awareness. A hostile environment should ideally never be a complete surprise. Before walking into any high-stakes interaction, you really must anticipate potential hostility and pre-identify maybe 2 or 3 core themes you absolutely want to convey, backing them up with concrete examples and evidence.
So preparation beforehand.
Not memorize talking points, no, but knowing your foundational facts cold. This is really an exercise in being present before the moment even starts. Anticipate.
Okay, so when the hostility arrives in the moment, how do we apply that greeting the anxiety principle to the emotional dimension of the exchange itself?
We must acknowledge the emotion in the room, but we have to be extremely careful not to name the specific emotion definitively.
Why not? Seems counterintuitive.
Because if someone is visibly furious and you say, "I hear you are angry," they might instantly retort, "I am not angry. I am profoundly disappointed."
Yeah.
And now you're wasting valuable time arguing about their internal state.
Okay. Bad sidetrack.
Right. Instead, acknowledge the intensity without specific labeling. "I hear great concern regarding this metric," or "You clearly have a lot of passion on this issue and I appreciate that intensity." This validates their feeling, brings the emotion into the room without creating a definitional argument, and allows you to then pivot back to the substance.
Okay, acknowledge the intensity, not the label. And this is where the MacGyver tool comes in. The paraphrase. You called it the Swiss Army knife.
The paraphrase is absolutely the Swiss Army knife of spontaneous communication, especially here. It serves 3 vital functions simultaneously, drawing on the techniques we've discussed. First, it buys you time. That's step 3. Stand there, listen. Second, it ensures you truly heard and understood the core of the question, which shows respect. Most importantly, in a hostile setting, it allows you to reframe the question subtly to when you are more comfortable and prepared to answer. That's step 2. Yes. And in action.
Okay, let's run a quick scenario. Assume a hostile client says, your pricing structure is ridiculous and it's exploiting small businesses like ours. How do you defend that exploitation?
Woo! Okay, tough one. The hostile core is exploitation and ridiculous pricing. Applying the paraphrase and reframe, you would respond by starting with the acknowledgement. "Okay, I hear your concern, and it's really important we address the cost structure head on. So if I understand correctly, what you're asking me to do is clearly articulate the value proposition that justifies our current pricing tier, specifically for our valued smaller clients."
Wow. Okay, that's smooth. You haven't denied the price is high, but you have successfully deleted the loaded word exploitation and replaced it with a functional, defensible concept, value proposition.
Exactly. You acknowledge the premise of their cost concern. Yes, cost is important, but reframe it as an opportunity to clarify your strength. And let me explain the value. You would then immediately deploy either the PSB or WSN structure to deliver your prepared value proposition points. And conclude by circling back, stating something like, "And because of the unparalleled service and this unique feature set, we believe this structure is priced fairly and actually offers significant long-term stability and growth potential for businesses like yours." You address the price concern, but entirely on your terms.
That is tangible, real-world application right there. Okay, now let's pivot slightly to handling the unique challenges of remote and distributed audiences. This is so common now.
Yeah, a major area of difficulty because remote communication adds that layer of technical friction and removes so much crucial nonverbal feedback. When you're not co-located, you have to be overtly mindful of the distributed nature, and you definitely can't rely on simple physical participation games to keep energy up.
We hear so much about remote fatigue, Zoom fatigue. How do you maintain engagement spontaneously in that environment?
Variety and intentional action are absolutely key. For engagement, you need to ask the audience to imagine things more. Imagine what it would be like if we implemented this new system, rather than just stating goals. This pulls them in psychologically when you can't rely on physical proximity or shared energy.
Okay, use imagine.
Furthermore, you must actively leverage your technology. Don't fight it, use it.
Such as using polls and collaborative documents, things like that.
Yes. But even more specifically, you need to treat the chat window as your new primary nonverbal feedback cue. since you often can't see everyone's facial expressions clearly.
Right, little boxes.
Exactly. The chat is where tension, confusion, or agreement will often first appear. A great spontaneous speaker deliberately takes breaks, maybe talk for 10 minutes, then pause, actively monitor the chat for 3 minutes, addressing questions directly to ensure connection is maintained.
Active monitoring.
And also, manage your physical presence on camera. Practice setting your camera so that even when you look at the names in the meeting list or glance at a second screen for your notes, you still appear to be making reasonable eye contact with that primary camera lens. Little things matter there.
That constant monitoring, checking the chat, the eye contact. It's a form of being present-oriented specifically for the remote world.
Precisely. You're forcing yourself to pay attention to the environment as it exists, not just the sound of your own voice echoing in your office.
Okay, final scenario. What about if you are the one asking the spontaneous questions and you're dealing with a highly trained interviewee? Maybe a politician or a corporate executive who is practiced at deflecting and giving non-answers.
Ah, yes. Trying to penetrate those thick, pre-rehearsed layers of media training. The standard question-answer format will likely fail you there.
So what works?
The instructor suggests the immediate power of simply asking why. Ask your first question, get the inevitable rehearsed response, and then just ask, why do you feel that way? Or, why did that specific decision lead to this particular result? Pushing the why maybe 2 or 3 times often breaks through the rehearsed structure and forces a more authentic, spontaneous answer because they haven't prepped that layer.
Just keep asking why. Interesting.
And the second great piece of advice for this situation is to change the relationship dynamic by asking for advice.
Asking for advice, how does that work?
It changes the entire power dynamic. Instead of asking them for a corporate position, which they are trained to defend, ask the person for guidance. For example, given the complexity of this market challenge you've described, what advice would you give to, say, a competitor or perhaps a new CEO who is facing this exact situation for the first time?
Oh, that's clever.
This shift puts them in the position of trusted expert and mentor, rather than defender of the corporate line. And that often elicits richer, more authentic, more detailed responses than if they were simply asked to justify their product or policy again. #outro.
Wow. This has been an incredibly detailed session, really taking the huge complexity of spontaneous communication and boiling it down into, 7 core actionable techniques or maxims?
Yeah, let's quickly consolidate these tools into your immediate takeaway list. You've got to manage your initial panic by greeting the anxiety, then reframing the interaction as conversation, not performance, and forcing yourself to be present, using that focused cognitive effort like counting or tongue twisters.
Right, the 3 anxiety managers.
Then use the 4 steps for instant stressful support. Dare to be dull, which means get out of your own way. Use yes and to reframe situations as opportunity, not threat. Don't just do something, stand there, which forces you to listen fully. And finally, remember that structure sets you free by deploying PSB or WSN instantly.
7 key takeaways. And remember, these are not just intellectual concepts that you passively absorb listening to us. They are skills. They require reps, practice.
Absolutely.
Just like the instructor practicing WSN on their family, you need to look for low-stakes opportunities to deploy dare to be dull and yes and this week, whether you're, stuck in traffic or talking to your kids or ordering coffee.
Every interaction is practice. And for those of you who want to explore this practice further, the underlying principles are detailed really well in the book Speaking Up Without Freaking Out, and you can find a lot of related resources and exercises on nofreakingspeaking.com.
Okay. We have given you the toolkit, the maxims, the structure. Now I want to leave you with one final provocative challenge for the week ahead.
Okay, here it is. Identify one challenging professional relationship or maybe a tense situation you anticipate facing this week. Maybe it's a difficult feedback exchange you need to have or a contentious Q&A session you need to lead. Commit, just for that one interaction, to approaching that situation using the yes and mindset we talked about. Actively reframe the interaction, not as a threat you need to survive, but as a genuine opportunity for shared problem solving and co-creation. Just notice what happens when you consciously try to build on their premise rather than immediately defending your own position.
That shift from defense to co-creation feels like the real essence of spontaneous mastery. Great challenge.
Thank you so much to Alex and Sandra for being here and contributing to today's discussion. We'll see you in the next episode.